we are going to start with the Myrtle Beach Bowl. We have Georgia Southern, a 3.5-point favorite against Ohio. This game carries an over-under of 48.5 points and kicks off at 11 Eastern, not noon, 11 Eastern on ESPN from Brooks Stadium in Conway, South Carolina. That is one of 13 FBS stadiums hosting a bowl game this year. The line has flipped. Georgia Southern opened as a 2-point dog, and the under has also been bet down a bit. The reason that line moves so significantly, Ohio is down lots of significant players. Star quarterback Curtis Work, he transferred. Both their top 2 rushers are out. 2 of their top 3 receivers, starting linebacker. Like, we're dealing with a lot of stuff here. And to make it worse, backup quarterback C.J. Harris for Ohio suffered a season-ending injury. So we are now down to Parker Navarro. He's a grad transfer from UCF, has 10 attempts this season, a couple of touchdown passes, no picks. So could do worse, but he's certainly not the most experienced quarterback suiting up. Georgia Southern, on the other hand, look, when I assess these bowl games, I like to look at year-end finishes. Did you limp to the finish? Did you win a bunch of games in a row to secure bowl eligibility? That can kind of give you a gauge on how motivated and how up for these games a lot of these teams are. Georgia Southern, they lost their last 4 games. They started off 6-2. They tied for the second most turnovers in the country, and they allowed nearly 40 points per game during that 4-game skid. However, they should be at full strength. Should leading rusher Jalen White go? He did miss week 13 with an injury, so that's not insignificant. But, you know, I don't love the way they finished, but when it comes to bowl confidence pools, just a little bit of strategy here, I'm all over Georgia Southern. They're picked in less than 20% of ESPN entries, despite greater than a 60% win expectancy. Just those numbers right there. You don't have to know anything about the players on the field. You just look at that number. I'm picking Georgia Southern in bowl confidence pools. When it comes to betting, I still think 48.5 might be just a little bit too high. I'm still on the under here. Georgia Southern, they air the heck out of the ball. The defense has been really, really bad, so I think the number is inflated because of those things. But Ohio's opt-outs, man, that seriously affects their offense. Their defense is still really good. And, you know, that was an offense that was already meandering. Plus, a little bit of wind in the forecast, gusts around 20 miles an hour maybe this coming Saturday.
And Brett, you said Georgia Southern picked in less than 20% of the ESPN entries, at least currently. Contrarian pick, right? I mean, that's what that means here is you got to pick that's low pick rate, and they have a 60% chance to win this game, a 6% win expectancy. Like, that's a contrarian pick 101, like you said. It was a concept that I was enjoying reading in your article, Brett, something that I hadn't really thought about applying to bowl season. Of course, you think about it during March Madness pools, which you even alluded to, but interesting concept for bowl season as well. And yeah, an easy way, potentially a smart way to try to get ahead of the competition. I won't say easy because nothing is for sure. We are dealing with probabilities, of course. All right, Brett, for me, I want to start quickly by saying that my model, the K Ford ratings, the power ratings, it's not designed for bowl season accuracy. And so, like, what do I mean by that? Player availability, whether it be opt-outs or transfers in today's day and age, coaching changes, travel logistics, motivation levels for teams, none of those factors are explicitly captured by my model when generating the power ratings for these teams that I'm using coming into bowl season, right? So obviously, all of those factors are incredibly important and will have a huge impact on how the game is played and ultimately which team wins and by how many points. If you're a real sicko and you got some against the spread stuff going here in bowl season, essentially, Brett, it's a long-winded way of me saying, generally speaking, don't use my numbers for non-CFP games. For the CFP, my numbers are still useful because many of those factors that I just talked about, those aren't at play in those games. And there are some other non-CFP bowl games where my model can still be useful because we don't have some of those factors. But all in all, don't use my model. If you've used my model throughout the regular season, and I know some people out there have because you DM me about it and send me notes, be very cautious if you're doing so during bowl season. My model performs significantly worse during bowl season relative to the regular season. So I'm going to focus more on the season that was for each of these teams in these bowl matchups during the breakdowns and previews of all these bowls that we're talking about. So for Ohio, it was a mixed bag. I projected the Bobcats to be the favorite in the MAC East coming into the year. And while they fell short of winning the division, Ohio still won 1.5 more regular season games than I projected. They were led by a defensive unit that ranked in the top 20 nationally And this was the best Ohio team since the COVID-19 shortened season in 2020 by my power ratings. For Georgia Southern, I projected a 6-6 season featuring a slightly better than FBS average offense and a sub-100 defense. Brett, that's literally exactly what the Eagles were this season. The 2023 team was worse than last year's team in Statesboro, but better than the 2021 version.
Now, because a lot of people may just say, okay, well, if his model is useless, why am I even listening? Look, take the numbers that Kelley has from this season, because by the end of the year, they're extremely sharp, and then make manual adjustments if you want. How much do you think Curtis Rourke is worth to Ohio's overall total? Subtract that off. And, the market's already helping you. The market's telling you that 5.5 points is what all the absence is for Ohio's worth. Now, it's up to you to decide whether or not that's enough, and that's how I would use the power ratings in bowl season, and hopefully I'll be able to help you out with player opt-outs, availability, coaching changes, and motivation. So